Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
The Grow Louisiana Coalition is working to ensure the state's oil and gas industry is part of our economic and cultural heritage for years to come. We'll visit with the Coalition's Executive Director, Marc Ehrhardt, when we return on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Louisiana businesses, by partnering with your local community and technical college foundation, you're guaranteed a skilled, highly competent workforce, homegrown talent, trained specifically to meet your needs, whatever those needs are. Visit this website to learn more about how to partner with your local Louisiana Community and Technical College Foundation. To better prepare for tomorrow, become a partner today.
Before you hire someone to work on your home or business, protect yourself. Go to lacontractor.org and make sure he or she is licensed in Louisiana. That's lacontractor.org for a list of over 26,000 licensed contractors. It's your money. Make wise decisions and protect yourself.
Growing up in Baton Rouge, I used to always pass up ExxonMobil, but I never thought that I would actually have the opportunity to get on. But what I thought was impossible turned out to be possible. So I just feel like it's just a wonderful opportunity to be able to provide for my family.
We are committed to being a community partner. We are actively working to recruit the talent here in Baton Rouge, and we want to bring them into our workforce. We're ready.
Louisiana has over 26,000 licensed companies that do business legally and meet the needs of our state. Before selecting a contractor, check references and verify the license at lacontractor.org. It's your money. Make wise decisions and protect yourself from being scammed.
For 8 seconds in the arena before an afternoon in the field. For a promise to students that honors success in the classroom. For championships earned on the bayou. For innovators committed to reclaiming our coastline. The Universities of Louisiana. For your future. For our future.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Marc Ehrhardt of the Grow Louisiana Coalition is our guest. Buddy, welcome back. Thank you for the great support that you have provided to this program over the last few years. We're grateful to have you here.
Tim, it's good to be with you. It's important that the people of the state know about how important the energy industry is to Louisiana's future, even with all the things that are being talked about why people think we don't need oil and gas anymore. Oil and gas is as important to Louisiana as it's ever been.
Well, and there's lots to talk about from that perspective. But, you know, I thought about this when we were prepping for the show this time, is you've been on 3 or 4 times, and we've never really talked about your consulting firm, the Ehrhardt Group, and what you do sort of in your day job, right? I mean, obviously the work you do with the Grow Louisiana Coalition, critically important, but it's only one of your clients. Talk about your firm and talk about this wonderful recognition that you just received, being named one of the top 150 public relations firms in the country.
Our firm specializes in figuring out how people in Louisiana make decisions, what kinds of things go into something when somebody looks at an aisle in the grocery store and tries to make a decision about what they want to buy. Why do people believe things the way that they believe them, and what's important in educating the public so that the public can make good decisions about their own future and the future of their community. And so we've built our business around that since 1996. And our company, the Ehrhardt Group, which was founded by my dad and my stepmother 26 years ago now, we've grown to be the 130th largest public relations firm in the country. So it's doing work all over the Gulf Coast.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Well, congratulations on that. Your dad, and you mentioned your dad, Malcolm, the founder of the firm, was really sort of a leader in that public relations space in Louisiana for a long time, recognized as one of the icons of the business. Great clientele, worked with some of the most iconic names in the greater New Orleans area specifically and all over the Gulf Coast. Talk about your dad just briefly, Marc, and what he meant to the company and what he taught you specifically about the business that you're in.
I appreciate you speaking so many kind words about him. A lot of what we talked about, so we worked together for 25 years, and a lot of what we would talk about quite a bit is how we advocate on behalf of the people that we work with. And he believed very much that everybody has a point of view, right? And we get in, and especially as you turn on the news now, you see a lot of points of view. You see a lot of people yelling at each other, a lot of talking, maybe not as much listening that needs to happen. And what he taught me quite a bit was listen first and then figure out the best path forward. The best path might not be the most traveled one, but it could be the best path for the people that we work with and the companies we represent. He always thought in many ways the idea of entrepreneurship was really important. And people would look at you and look at me and go, well, they own different types of firms that deal with big companies, like Exxon or Chevron or something like that. Well, they're not really entrepreneurs. No, we are 100% absolutely entrepreneurs. And the idea of what it takes to roll out of bed one morning and go, I'm going to take the chance to start this business because I have a vision for what my own career can be and what I could do with my family, and as importantly, what I could do for the state of Louisiana, and then go out and do it, is something, it's something that stays with me. It'll stay with me forever.
Well, you and I have enjoyed a great friendship. We share a number of common clients, but you work with some iconic brands, and we mentioned that earlier, the Roosevelt Hotel, New Orleans Convention Center, City Park. Talk about some of your client base, Marc, and what it's been like. I say often that I've had the great privilege of working with and, quite frankly, learning from some of the largest and most successful organizations in the world. I know you feel the same way.
Oh, I really do. And what we gain by working with these most notable institutions in the state, in the South, in some cases in the United States, is that we gain a better understanding of what it is that these companies and institutions want to accomplish for the betterment of the communities that they live in. And I think sometimes when we look at companies in various industries, we sometimes forget about the fact that those companies in Louisiana are being operated by people who live on our street and people who we go to church with, our kids go to school with. They're people just like you and me. And so when those companies start facing criticism or they face misunderstanding in the communities at large, a lot of times that misunderstandings directed at things that are way, way far away from here, when really if we stopped and actually talked to the people who are living down the street from us working for these types of companies, we'll learn a lot more. And then that's where we figure out how companies and industry can work hand in hand with the people and the future of the state of Louisiana.
You and I and our firms both focus on helping to build knowledge about these companies, building understanding, building trust. One of the things that has been my experience is oftentimes some of these large, particularly global corporations can get a bad name. But go back to what you just talked about, the fact that they are operated by, they are staffed by local people who live in our communities and work here. They are good folks who want to do the right things in their communities, and part of our job is to help tell that story.
That's exactly right. And as you look at things, especially around energy, around the chemical industry and things like that, you have facilities that are some of the most regulated facilities in the world that are happening right in Louisiana, and the people running them are Louisiana people. The people who are innovating are Louisiana people, and they're doing it right in those facilities between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And so sometimes when people from outside the state decide to come in and criticize, well, you're not doing this environmentally correctly and this type of thing, there's a complete misunderstanding about the level to which these Louisiana people are operating to protect the environment, to help the community, and to help business overall, to keep people employed.
One of your clients that you have done a fabulous job helping to tell that story about is the Grow Louisiana Coalition, helping to promote and defend oil and gas in our state. Let's talk about that when we come back from this break. We're visiting with Marc Ehrhardt, Executive Director of the Grow Louisiana Coalition. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Shell, the rhythm of Louisiana.
As humankind faces its most critical challenges yet, the world demands leaders, and LSU is taking up the charge. The research we do here goes everywhere to protect communities threatened by climate change, so you can live your life with fewer worries about tomorrow. We're formulating a better way for everyone. Because at LSU, our calling is humanity.
Plants would not be operating if they weren't operating under the regulations to keep everybody safe and keep the environment safe.
It also goes back to the end products that our raw materials go into. Solar panels, windmills.
Reusable bottles. Primary product is acrylonitrile, which is used to make carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber in an airplane is used to make it lighter.
By reducing weight, we indirectly help the environment because it uses less fuel. And for us to make products that help reduce carbon footprint is a big deal.
Shell, the rhythm of Louisiana.
So, how can I help you today?
Maybe you're looking for a bigger home. Maybe you have plans to grow your business. Or maybe all your plans have just changed. For the better. Whether you're planning for the future or just looking for a bank that cares about you. If you have a goal, let's make it happen.
This is what you're looking for.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Marc Ehrhardt, Grow Louisiana Coalition, is our guest. The oil and gas industry in this state has been an economic driver, arguably the primary economic driver for decades, right? As far as back as you and I both can remember, certainly. The Grow Louisiana Coalition's mission is to ensure that that industry is part of our economic and cultural heritage for years and years to come. There are some, as you mentioned early, that might want to see us move away completely from oil and gas. Let's talk about the mission and the history of the Grow Louisiana Coalition, Marc. How did it get started, and what are you guys working on?
So the Grow Louisiana Coalition was founded in 2014 as a place for the people of the industry to come together with one voice, so that the people we elect, both in the parishes, in Baton Rouge, even in Washington, D.C., can hear the voice of the industry and understand better the oil and gas industry's importance to the state of Louisiana, but more importantly to the hundreds of thousands of people who work in the industry in the state and alongside it all the time.
You tell great stories in your ads that have run on this program for a long, long time. You tell the story of the flower shop in Houma and how it's impacted by oil and gas. You tell the story of the young men and young women in North Baton Rouge who, because of some training initiatives that ExxonMobil puts together, have a better life and a better career. You really do focus on the cultural part of that and the industry's impact on individuals and individual businesses.
Exactly. And it's really the importance of the energy industry in the state of Louisiana is in what we go about and trying to communicate to people. So we have more than 100,000 supporters in the state. So people who have signed up to follow us on social media, people who have given us their emails and things because they want to find out more about what's happening in the energy industry in Louisiana. And more importantly for us, share that information, do something with it, and express their own support of the industry with the people they elect. What we're talking about are really three areas. Number one is the economic importance of the industry. People look around outside of Louisiana and they go, we don't need the oil and gas business anymore. We've got solar and wind or other things. We've got to move away from all those types of things. But and especially now, we're seeing all of that come to a head when we look at what's happening around the world and then where the United States and Louisiana is in particular when it comes to the future of energy in the world. And I think where we are going outside of the state is short-sighted, where everyone is looking at it as a zero-sum game. If you want to start incorporating wind and other alternative power generation, you've got to stop doing all these other things. That's not true. Number one, the companies that are investing the most in alternative fuels, things like wind and things, are the same companies that have been active and working in Louisiana for decades and decades. It's the same people in Louisiana who've been working in the offshore industry and those types of things who are now not only looking to do more safe exploration in the Gulf of Mexico for oil and natural gas reserves, but they're looking at it as opportunities for wind power as well. And that doesn't even count the types of environmental things that could be happening with stuff like carbon capture and sequestration and those types of things. So the economic importance of the industry is immense. Then there's the other part, which is the environmental and coastal investments. And that's where we, I think, get into a lot of the deeper discussions around the culture of Louisiana and how oil and gas plays into the culture of who we are as Louisianians. And we tell those stories quite a bit, and we connect them to what's happening on the coast. The number one private investor in Louisiana's coast is the oil and gas business. There's nobody other than the federal government spending as much money on coastal protection projects as the oil and gas industry is. And they're doing it because that's where their infrastructure is, that's where their people are, that's where their investments are. And it's a common goal for us all to have a strong coast that can protect us and then also spin off economic opportunities at the same time.
Well, you know, it's always been an interesting issue to follow for me, right? And we mentioned this, and Congressman Garrett Graves and I had this conversation, and you just mentioned it as well. It is industry in many cases, with its deep pockets and its ability to do research and development, that is working to solve some of the globe's most pressing environmental problems. And we see that along the coast. Look, technology is better today. Our air information systems are better today. We invited these companies to come to Louisiana 100 years ago. We permitted them to go out and do their work. And now, in many cases, as litigious as we are, we want to sue oil and gas companies for the work that they've done in our state. But my experience has been, as you just said, that these companies are coming to the table saying, look, if we have any responsibility for what's taking place along our coast, we're going to work to help fix it. And I know that that's something in your work that you are happy to see and you're proud of.
I am. I'm really proud to see the people of the industry in different parishes like Vermilion Parish, Terrebonne, Lafourche, where those leaders in those parishes are standing up and saying the oil and gas business and its future is important to us. And we're turning away from having lawyers come talk to us and try to bully us into suing our largest employers so that lawyers, a small group of lawyers, could potentially get some kind of payout. Lawsuits against the oil and gas industry have been and remain the biggest threat to oil and gas, safe oil and gas exploration and production in the state of Louisiana for the last decade. There were lawsuits filed almost 9 years ago out of Jefferson Parish, Plaquemines Parish. To this day, those lawsuits haven't produced a dime. In the meantime, the oil and gas business has spent about $400 million specifically on coastal projects. But we're still sitting out there with lawsuits and arguing over it, but it hasn't produced a dime. But now we're trying to figure out how we're going to grow the industry.
Let's take a break. I'll come back. I want to talk about the impact of the Biden administration's policy around oil and gas and where you see it impacting both our global economy and Louisiana specifically. We're visiting with Marc Ehrhardt of the Grow Louisiana Coalition. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Marc Ehrhardt of the Grow Louisiana Coalition is our guest. The Biden administration has policy that is not necessarily favorable to Louisiana's oil and gas industry, certainly not favorable to the U.S. oil and gas industry. Talk a little bit about what you have seen over the last 18 months or so from the administration and what the impact you believe that policy is having.
I think what the Biden administration is doing when it comes to domestic exploration and oil and energy production is a walking contradiction. I think it is astounding that we would be willing as a nation to go talk to places like Venezuela and Saudi Arabia about increasing their oil production, but not look to do anything within the boundaries of the United States to do the same. We have taken steps to go talk to places that don't have nearly the amount of environmental regulations that we do. They don't have any of the types of worker safety measures that we do. And they don't have the same level of efficiencies in trying to do production and exploration in a safe way that can benefit the greatest number of people. But we're going off to go talk to them about increasing their energy production so that politically certain people don't have to look like they're encouraging something that they said they wouldn't. It just doesn't make any sense. What we have done over the last 30 years is we have increased our environmental standards progressively over the last 30 years. And when it comes to things like the chemical industry, in that 30-year time frame, we've decreased in Louisiana our air emissions by 75% while increasing production. So we're doing more to help more people. But at the same time, we've decreased the amount of air emissions and things that are happening by 75%, which potentially with new innovation and technology, that could go down even more.
When you think about domestic exploration and production, and you think about how the administration has worked to curb production in the United States while it reaches out to places like Venezuela, and you think about what's going on in the Ukraine today, I asked Dr. Lauren Scott, the economist, this question. I'll ask the same to you. Isn't domestic energy production a national security issue for us?
Well, I think I agree. I think it is. I think that the idea of energy independence, which as America we achieved a couple of years ago, we had achieved enough where we were producing enough oil and gas safely that we could handle all of the energy demands that we had as a nation, and then in fact start exporting natural gas and things to other countries. If you don't think energy independence is important, you're not paying attention. Go ask the Germans whether energy independence is important. I mean, they're caught right in the middle right now, not only as well as Poland and all those countries in Central Europe. They're caught right in the middle because of their dependence on another country, which is volatile on their energy needs. In the United States, we have the ability to satisfy our own energy needs, to innovate. See, that's the part where I think what we're hearing from places outside of Louisiana on either coast, when everybody's yelling at us, they're trying to say, well, you can't do this. If you want to do this, you can't do that. Well, really, you can do it all. The future for energy in the United States isn't an either or thing. It is, let's do this safely, and then let's develop and innovate, and then let's introduce new things which really helps places like Louisiana because we're the best at it.
Right.
We're the best at developing oil and gas and power generation.
Well, when you think about the fossil fuel mix, particularly in Louisiana, what we know is that natural gas particularly is really a key element in some of our cleaner fuels, some of our cleaner environmental in terms of energy production programs. Talk about the importance of natural gas, Marc, going forward.
Well, I mean, natural gas is available. Natural gas can be explored safely, and it can be done in an affordable way, right? And it burns clean. And when you look at Louisiana and Louisiana's role in how energy is developed and innovated over the last 100 years, we've been at the forefront of natural gas exploration and production and figuring out what you can do with natural gas for a variety of things. And I think where we're running into trouble is that we're being told repeatedly by other people what we should and shouldn't be doing. And we are being told, well, you can't do that. People from outside of Louisiana are coming down here saying, LNG is terrible and you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Well, what should we do? Everything should be solar and wind. It just doesn't work like that. I mean, we don't have the capabilities to do that, number one. Number two, the future of energy is a variety of energy. It's not one thing or another. And what we run into quite frequently, especially now, are people who don't understand what it is we do here, who come from out of state, who try to tell us what our business is and how we can go about doing the things we've done successfully for 100 years, why we shouldn't do it anymore.
So we got about a minute and a half left in the show. What's on the horizon for the Grow Louisiana Coalition?
Number one, we are always going to be talking about the importance of the industry to the state's people, the state's economy, and the state's coast. Always going to be talking. None of that is changing. There's more activity taking place along Louisiana's coast now in terms of developing the master plan for the coast with the state, the large, huge projects that are taking place up and down the coast from Cameron Parish all the way to Plaquemine that are making a positive difference for Louisiana. Oil and gas people are a part of all of it, and we're going to keep talking about it.
In the last 20 or 30 seconds left, and you mentioned it, but your general message to the people in Louisiana's oil and gas industry.
The number one thing we want the people of the oil and gas industry, and really every Louisianian to know, is the future of oil and gas, the future of energy in Louisiana can be extremely bright if we open our minds and we look to do things together as opposed to try and force ourselves to one side or another.
We've said it, you and I have talked about it. It is possible for two things to be true at once. We can pursue alternative energy while we protect our oil and gas industry in Louisiana. Marc Ehrhardt, Grow Louisiana Coalition, keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you.
That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.